My name's Dave DeBow, founder of MoneyPartnerFormula.com, and this show is built for everyday real estate investors who are actively doing deals and looking to scale using other people's money. So if you're an active real estate investor and you want to get featured on this show to talk about your own real estate and capital raising experiences, then just go to daveinterviewsyou.com. Now let's get rolling with this episode, and remember to subscribe for daily interview content.
All right, guys, welcome to Property Profits Podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Kaminsky, filling in for Dave Dubow. And have you ever wondered how someone went from owning a simple duplex at 22 to owning over 40 units, including a vacation rental in Costa Rica, all through real estate investing? Well, today, my guest, David Giovanniello, a seasoned investor who mastered the art of creating a life of freedom through strategic property investments. David, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
I knew that last name would throw me. I got close, but we got it on the second
Yeah,
pass.
you got it. You got it on the second one. Perfect.
If you're reading it on the top bar, you'll understand. So, you started relatively young at 22. What got, like, a lot of people at 22 are thinking about like what bar they're going to go to this weekend, and you're thinking about like what kind of duplex I can buy. So walk me through that. How did that seed get planted for you?
Yeah. So I was fortunate enough to have a mother who constantly was trying to teach me how to get ahead early. And so it was actually her idea. She said, why don't you just buy a duplex, rent out the other unit? And this was long before house hacking was a term. So yeah, I lived in one unit, rented out the other. I think it was costing me about $200 a month maximum. That was including utilities to live. So yeah, I owe that to my mother for teaching me at a young age. And I guess lucky enough, I was listening to my mother at that age, which maybe most kids don't. But yeah, it definitely gave me a leg up and a good start in life for sure. And it's something I recommend today to most people.
Yeah, my grandparents are really where I saw the real estate. They were always, my grandmother being a real estate agent and my grandfather being the one that would fix up every house. They'd move in, fix it, sell it, move in, fix it, sell it. And they might do that every other year or so. So it was definitely in the family. So after buying that first duplex, how long was it until you started really looking at it and saying, oh, I could buy 5 of these, 10 of these, and now 40 of them?
Well, I guess it kind of happened organically and over time, slowly but surely. So a few years later, I bought a student rental. And then a few years after that, I refinanced that duplex to buy a triplex. So it kind of just happened organically where I saw I was gaining some equity and I was able to buy more properties. And to tell you the truth, it wasn't something that was totally planned at the time, but it worked out, and I was able to, once I had the equity, was able to start growing. But it didn't happen overnight, and it was just a nice slow and steady to where I am today.
So any sort of major challenges between owning a duplex and 40 units that you can remember and be like, yeah, that was tough?
Yeah, the main obstacle, and I think most investors will come across this obstacle, is that the banks all of a sudden aren't wanting to lend you as much money anymore. You're going to cap out. It's just the way they do their calculations. Even though I'm cash flowing, they make it look like I'm not. And so it became something where I had to find joint venture partners or people to partner with to start growing. I know people who are able to do it without the partners, but most people, including myself, I had to find partners to grow and scale my business.
Yeah, because at a certain point, the bank, you're saying, just not interested. And some people think that it's about them. But what I've found from a lot of different investors at that point is that it's the bank's risk decision. It's not like, oh, you're unfinanceable. It's that you and the bank and the risk decision isn't something that they're interested in. So you have to start bringing in new mortgage partners. And you can go right back to the same bank and say, we're going to do this deal, except it's going to be, my friend David here on title, and he's going to take the title and we're going to do the fine. Oh, David, yeah, look at your paperwork.
Right.
And boom, you've got the next thing.
100%. It's funny how that works that way, but that is the way the banks, and in their defense, they're well run, and they make sure to take care of their end too.
Yeah, they got to limit their exposure. So when with everything that you've done so far up to date, with the accumulation of 40 units, what's your biggest obstacle these days?
My biggest obstacle these days would be similar. Buying something small is difficult for me now because the banks really don't like the debt service ratio, even when I have partners. And so now I'm looking at bigger properties. And so the biggest obstacle is to find deals. A lot of properties, I'm looking now somewhere between 10 to 30 units, and
Hmm.
they're just hard to come by. And then as well as finding partners to partner with would be the two biggest obstacles for me right now. But finding the deals in this market is probably my biggest obstacle.
Yeah, because there's definitely things for sale, but when you do the underwriting, you can usually see why they're still for sale because it's just like, yeah, okay, you start going through it. And the other big thing that I've noticed with, small and medium, even large multi-units is that, my mentor used to say buyers are liars, sellers are liars. And you go into a multi-unit deal and you get a pro forma on like a MS Word document and it's all typed up and all the numbers are round. It's like, oh, water is 2,000 and heat is 1,000. It's like, okay, these clearly aren't real numbers. And then you start digging into like the rent rolls, um and oh, everyone's more or less up to date, and this unit hasn't paid in 6 months and that unit hasn't paid in 9 months, and it starts to really it really starts to show why it's still for sale, and that's really why we have to do the underwriting. So what are some tips um, that you could give some people that are maybe transitioning into those multi-units that you're using to evaluate your multi-unit purchases? To what makes it a deal?
Yeah, so I guess when it comes to a deal is a hard term for me to really pinpoint. For me, I'm looking for something where the numbers are still working today, but I have an opportunity to add value. So I'm always looking at value add. So the numbers make sense today where I can still cash flow and hold the property, but there's room or ways for me to add value.
Mm-hmm.
But you made an amazing point regarding due diligence. When you're buying a property, especially in Ontario, where I invest in, where it's
Mm-hmm.
very tenant friendly, you have to make sure you don't have half the unit not paying the rents.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have delinquent tenancies. So doing your due diligence is extremely important. You cannot trust the numbers you get. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
one of the biggest things I like to get are tenant acknowledgments with the leases, so I know what the tenant thinks they pay, what they think they own, as well as what the lease says and what the seller is saying. So I try to get that all at the same time. I've noticed in deals where the tenant acknowledgments come at the end and it's too late by that point. So
Mm-hmm.
due diligence, super important and a great point. Um, yeah, so, but also making sure that you're finding properties that meet what you're looking for. As for me, it's value add, but still able to carry itself today.
Mm-hmm. Because yeah, there's hope that the interest rate is adjusting in a positive way in not 10 years from now. So if it pencils out today, then it should be good tomorrow. Why not uh, a different province or in the United States? What's why Ontario?
For me, I'm not opposed to other areas. I right now I've always just liked being close to home. So not only do I not invest outside of Ontario, besides my property in Costa Rica,
Mm-hmm.
I have my properties in London and St. Thomas, and so I'm within a 45-minute drive of my house. I just felt most comfortable having them close to home. But ever
Mm-hmm.
since I've purchased a property in Costa Rica, it's opened my eyes where it's the least amount of work and great cash flow for me. So, and a
Mm-hmm.
great place for me to go vacation. So my idea now would be to find some other places in great destinations that I can also buy property.
Yeah. So how did you come into purchasing in Costa Rica?
Yeah, so Costa Rica has always been a goal of mine. My wife and I love Costa Rica, and it's somewhere where we'd probably like to retire or at least spend some of our retirement. And a colleague in the business moved down there and became a real estate agent. And so I talked with him a little bit, and I found this just a cool modern property with a pool in a beach town. backing
Mm-hmm.
onto the jungle, and it was perfect, exactly what we were looking for. And we just jumped at it. It was just coming out of COVID, or maybe it was even still in COVID, really. So it was just a perfect time to have a place to go to when we wanted to. And we're
Mm-hmm.
actually going to be going there next month.
Nice. Now, well, in February,
Yeah,
the sunniest, most beautiful part of Canada, right in the middle of dead set in February.
that's
So,
right. That's right.
did you have to put financing together on that, or there's partners on the Costa Rica deal?
Yeah, so I financed that one myself. Financing properties in Costa Rica is a little bit difficult. Um, it used to be just cash, or people would do it with their line of credits. But
Mm-hmm.
now there are some companies that will finance up to about 60% loan to value,
Mm-hmm.
or a lot of vendor takebacks down there at 50% loan to value. And
Yeah,
that's
so
probably the
they'll
most
hold the
common.
note. Yeah,
Pardon me?
they'll like hold on to the note, at least half of it.
That's right. Yeah, the seller will hold the financing on you, and it's usually around 50%.
And then they'll bring back you'll have to still bring the line of credit cash, the other
Yeah,
half,
the other
or the
50%,
bank maybe.
the other 50% could be cash, line of credit. Yeah, people get creative all different ways. But on that particular one, I did purchase it on my own,
Mm-hmm.
and it's doing really, really well as a vacation rental through Airbnb. Um, Cash flow positive, and it gives me a place to go to regularly for a nice
Yeah, you can
discount.
just book it yourself. You say block the dates, and
That's
now
right.
that's your space. And you can go down there and finally fix that tap that's been leaking or
Yeah,
yeah,
100%.
probably not though. Like how do you deal with the management of that product? Because you like to keep them close to home historically, but now you're seeing that that doesn't need to be the case. What was the big mindset shift, or how do you manage that in a different
Well, I
way?
had no choice once I did purchase that property that it had to be managed by someone else. I oversee the Airbnb, but my manager is a local girl in the town that we bought in, which the town we bought in is Surfside. It's actually Playa Potrero. It's a great little town, and the my manager lives 5 minutes from my house. So she
Hmm.
greets all of my guests, makes them feel really authentic to Costa Rica, which is awesome. And she just seemed very trustworthy. And so far, she's been great. She takes care of every issue I've had. And yeah, so that's been a huge eye opener for me for realizing that I can do these things. If I find the right team at a distance, there's no reason why I can't grow that as well.
Hmm. I find that, through the interviews that I do, that the forcing of not being able to touch it actually forces you to do something like that. And then I actually had this other interview where she said, we wanted to move to Hawaii. So what we did was we spent a year with the mindset that we can't just drive down to the building.
Right,
And that gave us the ability to then say, okay, now we can leave. I think it was like Tennessee or something. And now they're in Hawaii because they started practicing distance while they were still in town, which gave them the ability to then separate themselves from the business. Because a lot of times with multi units and buy and hold, you're driving past it after dinner to see if there's mattresses behind the house or whatever. You're like, oh, what's going on with the unit? And when you start practicing distance, that's when it actually becomes a business. Apparently, what people have been saying is that's when it becomes, because you start employing people and
right.
system to
Yeah.
handle the things that you're doing. So um, when you're looking at Ontario and you're looking at the pricing and the opportunity, um, are you going to continue in on London? Like that would be ideal, or are you looking at other markets as well in
Yeah,
Ontario?
I would look at other markets for sure. If there's the right opportunities and right deals. For me, I just want that, you know, 10 to 30 units is my kind of sweet spot. I just feel pretty comfortable with right now.
Mm-hmm.
Financing that, finding the partners for that, and handling that. That's where I feel most comfortable. And it's I like having everything. Now that I have bigger buildings, I do like having as many units under one roof as I can.
Yeah, it saves time, and you can, I guess you can organize them more easily. So with real estate, what do you think your secret sauce is? What comes easy to you that other people find difficult to do?
Yeah, that's actually really, really good question. For me, I think it's just more of I'm a consistent, slow and steady kind of guy. So I'm constantly, since I was 22 and now I'm 48 years old, I've been constantly looking for properties.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm constantly reaching out on a regular basis. And one of the best ways that I've found most of my deals have been through for rent advertising. So either Kijiji, Facebook, or just old school classifieds. I would call landlords, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
consistent at it because you get a lot of no's, a lot of
Yeah.
no's. And so being consistent and sticking with it all the time until I find a deal, I think that's something that many people might give up before I did. And I just kept plugging away. And to tell you the truth, I got my favorite building. I have a 12 unit in London, in the best part of London, like an ideal part of London, like an A location. And I got that off of a rent sign. And it took me about 8 months to get that seller to sell. So I was
Mm.
very persistent, consistent on staying on top of him. And so that I think that's one thing that would keep me on how I'm finding and building my business, staying
Mm-hmm.
consistent and working at it. The other thing I think that makes me successful in the business is the fact that I treat my tenants like a customer. So I treat my
Mm.
tenants like they are my number one customer. So I treat them with respect. As long as they're treating me with respect, they're going to get respect. I make sure that all repairs are done at prompt time and by a professional. I'm not going there and tinkering. Someone else is going there. So quick text to me, and then I text the professional, and off they go and get taken care of. So I give gifts to good tenants when they've been paying on time consistently or they take good care of the property. I'm giving gift cards and stuff like that. So little tricks like that that I think have made me successful over the years.
Yeah, I've heard that a few times too, is when people stop looking at it as tenants and start looking at it as customers. Like, how can I make sure that the laundry facility is perfect for my customers? How can I
Right.
make sure that the parking lot is perfect for my customers? Almost like an Airbnb edge to a thing. Because, like, you maybe if you own a single family or a duplex and the snow doesn't get cleared right away, but it gets cleared, or maybe it's cleared not great. If it was an Airbnb and it was super important that it was cleared perfectly to make sure you keep your 5-star rating, your customer, then suddenly there's a different attention to the thing. And there's like a mindset piece there that I've heard over and over from successful cash flow investors when they start treating their multi-unit customers, or rather tenants, as customers, their best customers, because they want to
Right.
keep them 5, 10, 20 years. Like, why do you want to turnover? You want to keep your best customers for as long as you can. So
I
what
agree. I
does the
agree. And
future
that's a
look
good, that was a really good point you put comparing it to an Airbnb.
like?
Because when you don't get that 5 star, you're going to make sure you're doing everything you can for them. So that is a really good point.
I wonder if people go on apartments and like Google review their own apartment.
I think that they're starting to do something like that with landlords where you can rate your landlord, which I
Yeah,
don't
that
think is a
would be,
horrible thing, but
well,
I'd rather
I
rate my
think,
tenant, mind you.
oh, maybe there's a whole app there. We start
Yeah,
developing it.
yeah, you
Rate your
never know.
tenant slash rate your landlord, and it's like a matching
Right.
thing, so you can find out, oh, I don't like that tenant. Well, I mean, I guess that's the residential tenancies branch. That's what that's how they rate
Yeah.
tenants. So
Right.
what does the next 12 months look like for your business?
Yeah, for me, right now, I'm actually in the process of searching. So I'd like to buy. I think right now is a decent time to buy. I think over the next few years, we're going to see slow and steady growth. We had a little bit of a drop, and I foresee over the long term, I see growth. So if
Hmm.
I can find a nice building that I feel I can add value to, or that is already, cash flowing now, I would look at something like that. And so that's the idea, is to continue to grow as well as potentially buying another vacation property somewhere down south, either Mexico, Florida, Panama. Those are some of the areas I'm looking at for the next one, and potentially Europe.
Specifically so that you can spend the other 2 weeks there.
Yeah,
Pick the spot you want to go to, put
It's
a vacation
exactly.
rental
It's areas
together.
that I want to make sure that I travel to, and that's why I'm picking warm spots.
Yeah, for sure. So, as far as like investments are concerned, how are you expanding your network of prospective investors?
Um, well, right now I'm expanding it by just trying to get that word out there,
Hmm.
that I am looking for investors, and I do offer this opportunity for people to partner with me and be a money partner. Um, And then, yeah, if I can find good deals, it's a lot easier to put those investors together. So if I can piece the deals together, then the money seems to find its way to those deals.
Yeah. So what would you say has been most effective for keeping in touch with the current investors that you have?
For me, surprisingly, social media is one of the best ways to stay in touch and to show people what's going on in my life and what's going on with some of my properties. And so that's been probably the best way. And then other than that, I'm really hands-on with it's mostly text messages and phone calls to people. Kind of old school that way, where I'm gonna try and contact people and make those contacts by phone or text
Hmm.
when I have a deal.
Yeah, I always say real estate's a contact sport in that the people who are afraid of getting on the phone don't typically do that well. Like there's going to be a point where you're going to have to talk to someone you don't know. If you don't like
Yes.
that, maybe Toastmasters is for you. And
Yeah,
then,
exactly. Well, yeah, and
or,
that's like I
or
said,
get a sales job, get an
that's how I
outbound
find
call.
my deals is through making phone calls to landlords and then when I find a decent deal, I'm making phone calls to people who've shown interest that they want to invest with me. So
Oh, I like that strategy too. I use the same strategy when I'm looking for properties to wholesale or to flip is, when it's for rent, um, there's a little bit of motivation. It's empty. Usually a
that's
single
right.
family home for rent is hurting.
Yep.
Maybe some for rent in a multi-unit, maybe it isn't hurting so much, but certainly you call up a single or a double and missing half the rent or all the rent has them being like, do I still want it? Maybe I'll just sell it to this guy who called me out of the blue. Hey, I noticed you still have that for rent. Any interest in maybe selling that thing? And then
Right.
boom,
Especially if
you're
they
into
just
it.
dealt with a nightmare tenant, finally got them out.
Yeah, they're
You
still
might have
throwing
them
the
at that.
trash out. There's still a huge pile of trash at the back
Yeah.
of the yard, and
Yeah.
it's definitely a great strategy. So, when it comes to the social media, what are some things that you're doing on the like, no trust kind of side of things to build that credibility?
Yeah, for the last maybe 3 years or 4 years, I've just been trying to create little short videos that are educational videos or, trying to give value back. So whatever I've learned, little tips and tidbits that I've learned over the years, I try to share them on my social media, usually on Instagram. I'm just those short videos of ways that either I due diligence on tenants or what's the best day to close, little things like that I just try to do to add value and to show people that I do know what I'm talking about and that I've been
Hmm.
doing this quite a long time.
Yeah, I always find that the value exchange is really important for, well, I mean, when you're educating or edutainment, it does show people that it's like, oh, there's a lot. There's like that investors watching. They're like, I don't want to deal with that. Maybe I'll just invest with
Right.
David instead. So, if people want to do that, they want to connect with you. How do they find out more and find what should they do?
Yeah, so probably the best way is through Instagram at David_Giovanniello. And that's probably the ideal spot to get a hold of me. And yeah, they can check out my videos and if they have any questions, they can reach out through that.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I really appreciate you stopping by. Another reconfirmation that treat your multi-unit tenants, I guess all tenants, treat all your tenants like customers and try to keep them customers for life if you can. I really appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Until next time, guys, we'll catch you on the next video.
Hey there, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And as always, if you want to listen to more daily interview content, make sure you subscribe. And if you're an active real estate investor and you're doing deals and you'd like to get featured on this show, then just head over to daveinterviewyou.com. Now at moneypartnerformula.com, we help real estate investors to create a process for predictably getting capital so they can do more deals without relying on hard money lenders or the banks. We do this by building them a private capital marketing system. Now, if you want help turning yourself into a big money capital attraction machine, then book a call with our team to see how we can help. Just visit moneypartnerformula.com to find out more. All right, take care, and we'll see you on the next interview.